So ballots are dropping throughout LA County, and there's a very heated debate about who should be the next district attorney. We are very fortunate to have one of the candidates here with us, Dan Kapelovitz, who is a criminal defense attorney, and he is running to be the next district attorney. So, Dan, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yes, yes, we're very excited. So let's start with a little bit about you and your chosen profession as an attorney. So on your website, you say you're very passionate about this topic. You say that you're doing this for, quote, helping those who have found themselves caught up in the criminal justice system. So could you talk to us about that and how it informs what you are hoping to do as a candidate, and certainly once you're elected.
Okay, well, I am the only candidate who is a criminal defense attorney. All the other ones are prosecutors. I am the only one who's in court almost every single day, all over the county, dealing with cases and dealing with deputy district attorneys. I probably know more deputy district attorneys than George Gascon does, and he's the head of the department or the office. And yes, I've been doing criminal defense for over a decade now. I love it because I do get to work with people that help them out who are in a horrible situation. And I find good in everybody pretty much. And I want to help them protect their constitutional rights, protect their right to go to trial, the Fourth Amendment rights, if it's something like that, like an illegal search or seizure. I also am appointed by the courts, the only candidate to represent victims when their rights are being violated or possibly. For instance, I have a case where a victim missed court one day. And so George Gascon's office decided to have the court issue what they call body attachment, basically a warrant. He was arrested. They fought like crazy to keep him in for $100,000 bail. The judge agreed. And they're victimizing their own witnesses. And even though Gascon says one of his directives is his deputies would never seek a body attachment. And I don't know if he changed his policy, or what I really think is that the deputy district attorneys they just do whatever they want. They don't listen to George Gascon. So while his directives might be great, they're not implemented. So that's really why I decided to run, because one, I want to tell everyone what's really happening. No one believes me, but I'm the only guy basically who's there every day and sees what's happening. Some of the DAs are, but they won't really tell you what's happening. And also, I just realized that we need a change. I think I can get things done. I'm going to hire. We have over 200 vacancies in that office right now. The first thing I'm going to do is hire 200 of the best and brightest justice-oriented attorneys to fill all the vacancies. Morale's down, and part of it is that they're overworked and understaffed. So yeah, I've been doing criminal defense for a long time, and I've just always sort of fought for the underdog.
That's great. Yeah, so we're really we're mentioning his name over and over again. So let's talk a little bit more about the district attorney George Gascon. He did run on a platform that he kind of got out there using words like progressive and justice oriented, but it sounds like you're saying that he really has not perhaps kept up at least some of that, and some of it may have to do with how he's approaching things in his office as far as some of the staff members. Maybe he's not, kind of keeping them accountable to his directives. So could you just say more, about what maybe Gascon is falling short on, certainly on his campaign promises?
Yes. So, yeah, he ran on a progressive platform, and I believe that's what he was trying to do, and the voters wanted that. That's why I think I have a good shot, because I'm probably I am more progressive than George Gascon, and that's what the majority of Los Angeles County voters want. All the other candidates pretty much are coming at him like as right-wing candidates. They want to put more people in prison for longer periods of time. And so they're saying they're blaming Gascon on the increase in crime, which is strange because violent crime has actually gone down. Theft crimes have gone up. And I don't blame that on Gascon. I actually blame that on the fear mongers who have kind of hyped up this whole thing, telling everyone that nothing's going to happen to them if they go into a store and take a bunch of clothes. They say, oh, you won't even get arrested. You might get cited out. And then George Gascon's not going to even file charges. That's just not true. I get those cases all the time. I just got one. And they're almost always filed as felonies because they say, oh, we should lower the threshold amount that, Prop 47, everyone's talking about that. That raised the threshold to $950. It's very easy to get to that amount. $950 does not buy you much these days in terms of designer bags or clothing or whatever. So these are charged as felonies, and the people don't want someone who steals a candy bar to be facing 3 years in prison. So they want to change the law. I think Prop 47 was good, and actually crime went down. Theft crimes immediately afterwards. I think they've gone back up. And again, I kind of blame it on the fear mongers because they keep showing the same like video over and over again of smash and grabs. And then finally, people are thinking, wait, I can get away with this because they're telling me this, and law enforcement are saying we're not going to arrest people because Gascon won't do anything. But when they do arrest people, they do file charges. So it's more of a law enforcement issue. Yeah, you can't catch everyone who does these, obviously. And so, yeah, no one's going to be charged if they're not caught. But when they are caught, Gascon charges them. So it's a myth, and it's actually causing more.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's really important to put that, kind of into perspective for a lot of people. Where, yes, of course, there's been a lot of criticism of Gascon, but most of it, at least the loudest criticism, has come from a right wing kind of direction. So you are really pushing a more kind of a left wing analysis of his policies and whether he's actually implemented them. So I think a lot of people will really value that critique. So you've already mentioned a little bit about it, but could you tell us more about, you seem to have this philosophy. I mean, on your website, you state that mass incarceration actually begets crime. Could you talk to us more about, why do you as an attorney and as a resident, as a citizen, feel that we should have that understanding of crime?
Okay, well, I mean, mass incarceration means a lot of things, a lot of people. Obviously, to me, it means keeping people in jail and prison longer than necessary to achieve the goals of punishment. So, first of all, let's talk about bail because a lot of people are in jail because they can't afford bail. The Supreme Court has said that courts are supposed to take into account the ability to pay when they decide the jail amount or the bail amount, sorry. And obviously they're not taking this into account because everyone who's in jail, if they could afford it, they would bail out, believe me. They pay bail way before they want to hire a lawyer. So that's the first thing people will do, anything to get out of jail. So these people that are presumed innocent, haven't been tried, they've never been found guilty, they're stuck in jail. Even if they ask for a speedy trial, if it's a felony, that means they're going to spend at least 3 months in jail, even if they're acquitted of all charges at trial. And usually things take longer. Prosecutor asks for more time. They're understaffed. Like I said, they might be in trial, they might be covering like 3 trials that are supposed to happen at once. So they all get delayed. And um, so first of all, there's people in jail. Now, when they go in jail, they lose their jobs. Obviously, you can't work while you're in jail. Their family loses a source of income. They can lose their homes, become homeless. Uh, and not everyone obviously becomes homeless is driven to crime, but the crime is caused by socioeconomic factors. That's why I say we get to the root of crime. And same with prison. You have extra super long sentences. 50 years, you're taking someone like a father or mother out of the community. The children don't have this parent. And, if you go to prison for 30 years, I mean, most people age out of crime. Most crimes, people in their 40s don't really commit crimes as nearly as much as people in their 20s or 30s. People age out of crime. They get rehabilitated way before the decades in prison. Um, and so I want to get to, I want to reduce mass incarceration by having, not seeking the highest enhancements or the highest sentences all the time, letting people who are not, unless they're like by clear and convincing evidence, a danger to the community, letting them out on bail, reasonable bail, or no bail, really. Um, Most people do come back to court. That's the whole point, supposed to be the point of bail. Now, of course, you have a serial killer. They're not going to get out on bail. That's obvious. But if someone is truly dangerous, they're going to wait till they do their trial. But the average low-level felony misdemeanor, there should be no bail unless they repeatedly don't come to court. Okay, then set bail. Um, and so that's what I'm talking about, mass incarceration. And obviously, it's also costs the taxpayers millions and millions of dollars that could go into programs that prevent crime, drug programs, mental health programs, and even like, the death penalty. About a little less than half of us are against the death penalty they're running. I'm against it because it's wrong. Some people are against it because it costs too much. I'm against it for that reason too. And just think of, you could save literally millions of dollars just by getting rid of the death penalty. Gascon doesn't seek the death penalty. That's one of his directives he has followed up on. There's a moratorium on the death penalty. Gascon, he tried not to do alleged prior strikes. The deputy district attorneys, the association sued him. So then he had to. Now the California Supreme Court's taking that up. So we don't know how they're going to rule. He hasn't alleged gang allegations pretty much, although on resentencing, he sort of, his deputies are fighting to keep the gang enhancements in place, even though the law has changed and they're not necessarily lawful anymore, but their deputies are still fighting for him. So um,
I
it's
see.
just
Okay.
all that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can talk technically about this.
No, I think that is a very important point. You actually have a large section of your website that addresses that addresses these sentencing enhancements. So I think that, for audience members, it may not be entirely clear what those are. If you could just explain what those are and why, you have the perspective that you do and are critiquing Gascon and, the rest of other people in the department.
Okay, well, a sentence enhancement, it can be based on many things. So, all offenses are you're facing a sentence. Say sometimes a lot of times it's a triad. So it'll be like, let's say, uh 16 months, 2 years, or 3 years in prison. Okay. But if there is an enhancement, then that adds time to that. And often it can more than double it. So if there's a gang enhancement, sometimes that can add 10 years. Sometimes it can make an offense life. Sometimes it can make an offense a felony that's not even a felony, like graffiti. Graffiti is usually a misdemeanor if it's under a certain amount. But if it's a gang-related graffiti, then all of a sudden it's this heavy-duty felony. Um, there's gun enhancements, if use of a gun. There's great bodily injury enhancements that can add 3 years to a sentence. There's prior strikes, and there's all these enhancements. The law is changing on some of it because I think the voters are sick of mass incarceration, and so our legislators are changing the law pretty much in a positive direction, but it's very slow. And so, for instance, I had a client. He he was offered 8 years by the district attorney for a case. The maximum punishment was 12 years, except for the enhancements. This judge decided to max him out, they call it, when they give him the maximum sentence possible. The reason it was so high, so he had 12 years just on the base crime. And then he was in his 50s. And when he was 18 years old, he got a strike. This is like, 30 years later. So that alone doubled the sentence to 24 years. And then if the current charges also strike, you can add 5 years. So he was offered 8 years. The judge gave him 29 years. No, and then he got sent to a higher security prison, and he died of COVID. I mean, I don't know if he would have not died in a less secure prison if he only had 8 or 12 years. So, but I mean, either way, he was facing 29 years, or he got 29 years. And so it more than doubled the maximum sentence. So I think the sentences themselves are enough to serve the purposes of deterrence, incapacitation, rehabilitation. I don't really believe in retribution. Those are kind of the four things you learn in law school, day one, of why we have punishment. Um, so
Got it.
that's why enhancements. Yeah.
That makes total sense. And just as a curiosity, are oftentimes these enhancements perhaps uh, placed on people with maybe not even that great evidence and something like that, and then it really perhaps really disturbs the rest of their life? Is that part of what you're considering?
It can be based on little evidence, just like even the charge. I literally get completely innocent people all the time. I had one where I just looking at the video for 2 seconds would show my client was totally innocent because there was a fight in the courthouse lockup. All you had to do is watch the two guys beat up this other person, then trace them back to where they're sitting. Then the deputies come in and they arrest one of the people who actually did it. And then they arrest my guy, who, if you just watch the video, you'd see had nothing to do with it. So they're cases of total innocence. And so if you're innocent and then there's an enhancement, you're obviously innocent of the enhancement. But it's not so much that they can't prove up the enhancement. It's just, for instance, gang enhancements. They are, it's like 99% of them are alleged against people of color, men of color usually. And it's totally racist. If there's a white group that gets together and commits crimes, they're not considered a gang. They're, I don't know, a social club or whatever. Um, they don't get the gang enhancements. Sometimes charges are different based on your race. For instance, if a white man is hanging out with a prostitute, he's just considered her friend, or maybe he's a John hiring the prostitute. If a black person is friends with a prostitute, he's a pimp or a human trafficker. And you see this all the time. And there is a new law, relatively new, the Racial Justice Act, and that's sort of playing out now where, you can address these kind of racial inequities that happen in the court. So that's one thing with they say enhancements, all enhancements disproportionately affect people of color. If you look at the statistics, because it's what they don't have to, it's discretionary. So the DA doesn't have to allege them. And so they might allege them based on race, even subconsciously, implicit bias and all that.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that.
Oh,
Um,
sorry. One more thing I do want to add.
mhm.
Okay, so Gascon claims he's against enhancements, although he does still allege them. He doesn't. Some he doesn't. Um, but there's this new law that says, okay, when I said the triad, like 16 months, 2 years, and 3 years, it used to be a judge could just max you out no matter what. Now the presumptive sentence is a midterm, so 16, 2, and 3 would be 2. Now there might be factors in mitigation, so then they should get the 16. And if there's factors in aggravation, they could get the 3. But almost all the factors in aggravation have to be found true beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury, except for prior convictions. And so now Gascon, their policy, this is his policy, is to allege the aggravating factor in every single case. So it could be all kinds of things. Like one is they like to do is a particularly vulnerable victim. That's pretty much any victim. Or it's like the crime was very methodical or something, and if there's some kind of plan. But why are they alleging this? They'll allege it even on a case where they're offering probation or a drug program. Why are they even doing it? It's because they want to either have like 3 years in that case, prison hanging over someone's head while they're on probation, or they want to coerce a guilty plea, even if maybe they're innocent, because then obviously didn't get more convictions. So I don't know why he's doing that. It seems in certain cases, yeah, maybe you should, but why is he trying to do that in every single case? So he's not anti-enhancements. You might not call that an enhancement, but it basically serves the same purpose.
Got it. Yeah, I think a lot of people, once they hear about that, I think you're right that they will be interested, certainly in voting for you because this is what the community of Los Angeles County wants. So if Gascon is not meeting that's even though he said he would, that's alarming, obviously, from a voter perspective. So also I want to talk about on your website, you not only discuss, say topics of mass incarceration and crime and the sentencing enhancements and so many other topics. You also touch on your experience and your strong beliefs, say about animal rights as well as First Amendment issues. So I think people are very interested in both of those topics. So if you could just comment on that.
Okay, well, I love animals. When I was in law school, I was the president of the Animal Law Society. I externed with the Animal Protection Unit, which is the first prosecutorial agency in the country that dealt with animal neglect and abuse cases. I'm endorsed by the founder of that organization. His name is Bob Ferber. Um, and then today, now I'm a criminal defense attorney. I do pro bono. I represent animal rights activists because often they are arrested illegally or for not doing anything except protesting lawfully. And so I, every one of those cases I've got thrown out based on First Amendment issues. Um, and then a lot of times they sue the people that arrest them. I don't do the civil suits, but so I had people who were protesting the horse racing, the pony rides, some ritual chicken abuse, you name it. I usually do get these cases. I get them from various other animal attorneys, um, and so yeah, I do that pro bono. And even most protest cases, I'll do pro bono. I like to do protest cases usually. I've never lost one. We took one to trial. It wasn't an animal. It was these protesters were protesting against Steve Mnuchin, Trump's Treasury Secretary. We got all acquittals on that one. So I am in favor of the First Amendment. Also, most of those cases are First Amendment cases. Also, I was a features editor at Hustler magazine, so I worked for Larry Flint, who was obviously a famous First Amendment uh, fighter. You know, served time in jail for fighting for refusing to reveal his sources as a journalist in one case. And he went to the Supreme Court in the Jerry Falwell case. You might have seen that in the movie, The People versus Larry Flint. He could have settled that for way less money than it cost him, but he wanted to fight it, take it all away, and he won.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people in LA County are actually talking about certainly First Amendment issues, especially as we've heard a lot of stories about activists, community advocates, getting some type of punishments because they're expressing themselves and, say at just a city council meeting. That's obviously discouraging and for the public. And so that brings us to our next topic, segueing from First Amendment. Uh, a lot of Angelenos have lost faith essentially in the political process, and many do not want to vote. They essentially think that voting is a waste of their time. And a lot of that has to do with their perception that um, the government is not doing a good job, the elected officials are corrupt, is their perspective. So I'm wondering, given that view that is prevalent. A lot of people don't vote because they don't think it can matter because the system is corrupt. What would be your approach on that issue of public corruption?
Well, I mean, you probably know more about the local politics and public corruption than I do. We would obviously prosecute people who engage in uh, corruption, public officials in LA County and LA City. Um, but yeah, I haven't heard that people, I mean, maybe it's the people I talk to. Most people I talk to vote. They want to vote. One thing, obviously, if you take money out of politics, it would be better. It's hard to do that. I'm obviously not taking money from special interest groups. I'm not raising millions of dollars like a couple of my opponents. I don't think you can buy this election. One of my opponents has raised over $1 million, and he raised $2.7 million when he ran for attorney general. And I raised literally nothing and did almost no campaigning when I ran for attorney general because, well, my goal was to get 2% of the vote because that's what the Green Party needed to stay on the ballot for 4 years. So that was my goal. I knew I wasn't going to become the next attorney general. They had an incumbent, very popular Democrat. You can't really beat a Democrat in a statewide election in California. Hochman, I guess, thought he could win it. He spent $2.7 million, and in LA County, I got 103,000 votes, and he got 190,000 something votes, and he outspent me 2.7 million to zero. So I think this election I can definitely beat him, and people he thinks he's the front runner. There was a recent poll where he's only at like 4%. I've just really started the media's finally taken an interest in my campaign because I was shut out of that last big debate. LA Magazine would not let me debate. Um, there's a big debate coming up Thursday that I am going to be part of. So I think now once people hear what I'm talking about, I think we are going to gain a lot of momentum. And I think it's going to be Gascon and me in the runoff because you have about 10 other people that are going to split the vote 10 ways. They're the right-wing people. Chemerinsky is relatively liberal, but everyone else is really. I'm actually surprised they're Democrats. I mean, there's one Republican, and Nathan Hochman was a Republican his whole life, and all of a sudden decided to run as an independent because he knows he can't get elected as a Republican. So I'm only a Green Party candidate. Um, and there you go. So I think I have a good shot, actually.
Yes, absolutely. I think yes, of the voters that decide to vote, I think that you're would be a top choice for them. So let's say yes, that you are elected in November, that you beat George Gascon. So what would be, say, three things that the public could for sure expect from you in 2025, your first year in office?
Well, the first thing I do, the second I got elected, before I even took office, is I'd be recruiting the best attorneys possible that have the same kind of progressive policies, want to, get to the root of the crime problem, uh, not reduce or end mass incarceration, reduce crime. Um, so I would do that. So on day one, we would fill those more than 200 vacancies with justice-oriented attorneys. Part of that would be from, new attorneys from out of law school. Part of that would be veteran attorneys. I work with them all the time. Many of them would work for me. I'm not against promoting people in the office. They have a wealth of knowledge about the office, and a lot of them are good people, and most people are trying to do the right thing. Most people are good people. And what Gascon did is he just swept in there, issued these directives without telling anybody, and he just rubbed everyone the wrong way. He didn't even meet with his own deputy district attorneys. He didn't meet with judges, with defense counsel. He didn't meet with the people involved in the criminal justice system. So right now, my phone number is all over the place, and my cell phone. You saw how easy it was to get a hold of me. I'm very easy to get a hold of. I respond very quickly usually, and I'll talk to anybody. I'm open to any idea. If it's a good idea, I don't care where it came from. And so, and so I do think, and I already work with deputy district attorneys all the time, and we disagree sometimes well, all the time, usually on the outcomes. But they're reasonable people. We deal with it, and we get good results in most cases. So they do have these protections, like my job. I've had all these people, they've never had like a real job. Basically, they go from college to law school, and then they're a prosecutor, and then they have these civil servant protections. They can't really get fired necessarily. They have all these, then all these. I think all the DAs are suing Gascon right now, claiming he retaliated against them. So they're trying to make us, the taxpayers, give them millions of dollars, which could have been spent preventing crime. So they don't really care about crime. They just want to make some money, want the taxpayers to pay them. And so, but if I had a job And let's say Larry Flint said, "Hey, write an article in favor of the First Amendment." I said, "No, I'm gonna write one in favor of censorship." I'd be out of there that day. I've had real jobs. You can't get away with that. And now they're just doing the exact opposite of these directives that Gascon has implemented. And I just think it's outrageous. And they're blaming him for crime going up, which one is violent crimes going down, but they're blaming him for theft crimes going up, but he hasn't changed anything. So how can he be blamed for it? Except it's just a perception. And I've been to some debates and they're blaming him on homelessness. Like, okay, homelessness existed way before Gascon took office. He's not to blame. Crime is so complex. It's not like who the DA is. It sets how, everything. It's, socioeconomic. COVID obviously affected it. Even the weather can affect the crime rate. If it's hotter, there's more crime. So it's so many different factors. And to just I know people want to speak in simple terms when you're running, but blame everybody on Gascon. And so I just want people to think really what's realistically, it's a little more nuanced but people are smart enough to know that it's not just one guy who's completely changing the landscape of criminals, or whatever.
Absolutely, yes. It's a whole system, and that's great that you're, proposing to change it essentially. So, well, really appreciate your time, Dan. And so, how about if people want to learn more about you, where should they go, or how can they reach you?
Yeah, they should go to my website, which is www.kapelovitz.com. It's kind of hard to spell, Kapelovitz. Just Google criminal defense attorney running or whatever you want. Um, I'm also on Twitter, Kapelovitz 4, the number 4 DA. The website's always changing. I'm always adding stuff to it, and I'm always adding new things to Twitter. Basically, anyone I talk to news-wise, I'm adding to there, so they can do that. And call me. I'm happy to talk to anybody. And yeah, that's basically it. Just keep looking at the website, and I might keep adding more and more issues and more press and things like that.
Fantastic.
I'll add this on the website when it comes out,
Yes,
if I'm allowed.
yes, we are all about grassroots candidates here and grassroots people's issues. So, well, thank you so much again, Dan, and we'll see you next time for sure.
All right, thank you so
We'll be
much.
running for re-election, I'm sure.
Well, either way, in 4 years, I'm either going to win, I'm going to run for re-election, or I'm going to uh, not win, and I'm going to run again, and I'll have a lot more time. I kind of entered the race late, so I'm going to have a lot more time to prepare, do everything right, and I know that when I win, the second they're going to try to recall me, these right wingers. And it's going to be failed, just like they wasted all this time and money on trying to recall Gascon. So I think they have 90 days. They have to wait 90 days to say that you've like ruined everything, and then they can do it. And they're going to do it. But we'll fight it. People don't believe in it.
Exactly. People want the positive progressive change in the criminal
Yeah,
justice.
if you don't like Gascon, vote him out. But I mean, don't waste time on a recall.
Exactly.
Unless someone commits a crime or something. I mean, something's outrageous. Yeah, recall them. But if you just don't disagree with the policy that they're elected on, don't recall them. That's ridiculous. It's a waste of time because you're not going to win.
That's right. All right. Thank you so much, Dan. Okay. See you later.
All right. Thanks a lot. See ya.